عليكم ورحمة الله
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته يا شيخ. السلام عليكم. الحمد لله يا شيخ.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أما بعد. Our book on these days is Wad-Dawa by Al-Imām ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah, Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr rahimahullah. He has written about an answer to a question that he was asked. The last class had told us that ما أنزل الله داء إلا أنزل له شفاء. Allah has not sent down an illness إلا أنزل له شفاء, except that He has sent down for that illness a means of cure, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as He created the illness, He has also created the kid. Also explained to us it could be from. He gave examples of rahimahullah that the Quran itself, it is in al-Quran kullahu shifa. The entirety of the Quran is a means of cure, ikhwa. And he said rahimahullah, فَلَمْ يُنزِلِ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ شِفَاءً قَدْ أعم وأنفع وأعظم وأنجع في إزالة الداء من القرآن رحمه الله. It is فَلَمْ يُنزِلِ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. Allah has not sent down from the heavens any kind of a cure that is more comprehensive in the kinds of the diseases that it cures. We gave examples in the last class. The Quran is cure for both the diseases of the qalb, for the diseases of the badan, and for the diseases of the ruh. All of them, they find cure in the Quran bi'idhnillah. So he said, ما أنزل الله من السماء شفاء قط أعم وأنفع. Likewise, despite being so comprehensive and all-inclusive, it is also the most beneficial cure that you can find. The most beneficial, the most effective, the most potent from the cure that we would find is with the Quran. وَلَا أَعْظَمَ. Likewise, the most excellent and outstanding. وَلَا أَنْجَعَ. Likewise, the most impactful. في إزالة الداء من القرآن. There is no cure that Allah has sent down that is more comprehensive, that is more beneficial, that is more outstanding and excellent, and that is more impactful in terms of removing illnesses like the Quran. He gave us an example of the story of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The rest of his companions, radiyallahu anhum, they were 30 in number. They came to a village. The head of the village and his people had refused to accommodate them until the head of the village became stung by a scorpion. And they tried everything. They said, فَسَعَوْا لَهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَا يَنْفَعُهُ شَيْءٌ سَعَوْا لَهُ. They made every effort they could bring in to make sure that they find a cure for him. لَا يَنْفَعُهُ شَيْءٌ. Nothing from all those physical, the tablets, the herbs, whatever they could find. It did not bring cure to this man until Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, as we explained in the last class. He read onto the wound, he read onto the man who was stung by the scorpion. He read Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha. And this man, فَكَأَنَّمَا نُشِطَ مِنْ عِقَالٍ. It was as if the man was released. It was as if the man became released from a chain. فَانْطَلَقَ يَمْشِي وَمَا بِهِ قَلَبَةٌ. He stood up and began to walk away. And he had no illness that was left from the stinging of the scorpion that he was suffering. This was the last hadith we studied in the last class. When he ended this hadith, Al-Imām ibn Al-Qayyim said, فَقَدْ أَثَّرَ هَذَا الدَّوَاءُ فِي هَذَا الدَّعْ. This cure, the Quran, أَثَّرَ فِي هَذَا الدَّعْ. It was very impactful. It influenced that illness. The man was stung by a scorpion. And by the permission of Allah, upon the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha, by the permission of Allah, the man became healed. Firstly, that stinging was a maradun badaniyun. It was like as if, let's say, someone he had a nail pierce on him, or that he had an injury on his body, or that he had a headache. This is an illness that had to do with the limbs of the body. It was not maradun qalbiyun, like it was in the case of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu, who saw the man fell on the ground and he read to him, Afa hasibtum. This was a case of masun jinnijin. It was not in that kind of a case. It was not a case of maradun ruhiyun. It was the case of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, who read Surah Al-Fatiha to a man who was stung by a scorpion. It was a case of what? Maradun badaniyun. An illness that had to do with the limbs and our body, our organs of the body. It was not a maradun qalbiyun, as we might have thought that the Quran will cure amradul qalbiyah and al-amradu ar-ruhiyah. The point is that the Quran is shifa'un wa nunazzilu min al-Quran ma huwa shifa'un. So Ibn Al-Qayyim said there was that impact. وَأَزَالَهُ حَتَّى تَعَلَّمْ يَكُنْ. That man who had that أَزَالَهُ, it removed the illness. حَتَّى, so much so that كَأَلَّمْ in the first place. دَوَاءٍ وَكَيْسَوْ. The Quran is ashalu. It is the easiest, the most found of every kind of cure that you can find. The easiest. It's easily available. Every Muslim knows Surah Al-Fatiha. At least he would observe Salah. And reciting Surah Al-Fatiha is from the arkan of Salah. If you are praying alone or you are praying with the Imam. So somehow a Muslim has to learn and know Surah Al-Fatiha. And we should understand that it's a major means of cure for us. And so Ibn Al-Qayyim said, وَلَوْ أَحْسَنَ الْعَبْدُ التَّدَاوِيَ بِالْفَاتِحَةِ لَا رَأَى لَهَا تَأْثِيرًا أَجِيبًا فِي الشِّفَاءِ. لَوْ أَحْسَنَ الْعَبْدُ, if the individual perfects التَّدَاوِيَ بِالْفَاتِحَةِ, the act of curing illnesses and finding healing, employing Surah Al-Fatiha, لا رأى لها تأثيرا أجيبا في الشفاء. You would have found that Surah Al-Fatiha لها تأثيرا أجيبا في الشفاء. It has a seriously outstanding, amazingly great impact in Shifa regarding healing generally. Surah Al-Fatiha has a lot of impact in terms of healing, whether the disease is qalbiyun or the disease is ruhiyun, or the disease is badaniyun. He gave us a clear-cut personal experience. We read other ahadith. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِذَا مَرِضَ أَحَدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهِ نَفَثَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْمُعَوِّذَاتِ. If anybody fell ill inside the house of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, according to this hadith from our mother Aisha radiyallahu anha, نَفَثَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْمُعَوِّذَاتِ. The Prophet would recite al-mu'awwidhat and blow it on the individual. Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas. نَفَثَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْمُعَوِّذَاتِ. Anybody fell, he had a fever, he had read Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, alayhi salatu wasalam. He blew it on them. Likewise, he himself, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Aisha, our mother, radiyallahu anha, said to us that إِذَا اشْتَكَى يَقْرَأُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بِالْمُعَوِّذَاتِ. When he also took ill, so the Prophet would take ill to alayhi salatu wasalam. Whenever he took ill, وَيَقْرَأُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بِالْمُعَوِّذَاتِ. The Prophet would recite upon himself with the verses of asking for protection. Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, Ayatul Kursi, Surah Al-Fatiha. He blew it on his hands and rubbed the body parts. So these things were very common. And it is well known in the Sunnah, commonly found in the Sunnah, employing Surah Al-Fatiha and other verses of the Quran by means of finding cure for our illnesses, whether the illness is the illness of the limbs, whether it is from the illness of the heart, whether it is from the illnesses of the ruh, of the soul. We ended all of that. Ibn Al-Qayyim now said, rahimahullah, وَلَكِنْ هَا هُنَا أَمْرٌ يَنْبَغِي التَّفَطُّنُ لَهُ. If you are on the screen, that occurs in the print we display on the screen. It occurs on page 8. Ibn Al-Qayyim said, rahimahullah, وَلَكِنْ هَا هُنَا أَمْرٌ يَنْبَغِي التَّفَطُّنُ لَهُ. At this stage, there is a matter ينبغي التفطن له that is necessary for us to pay attention to. There is a matter requiring our attention here. The Quran is shifa'un likulli da'in. It is cure for every illness. Recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Recite Al-Mu'awwidhat. Recite أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا, and so on. The entirety of the Quran. Allah said, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So this is a means of cure for us, for every kind of illness that we may have. Ibn Al-Qayyim said, وَلَكِنْ هَاهُنَا. At this stage of our understanding this matter, هُنَا أَمْرٌ. There is a matter requiring that we pay attention to. What is that? He said, rahimahullah, وَهُوَ أَنَّ الْأَذْكَارِ وَالْآيَاتِ وَالْأَدْعِيَةَ الَّتِي يُسْتَشْفَى بِهَا وَيُرْقَى بِهَا هِيَ فِي نَفْسِهَا نَافِعَةٌ شَافِيَةٌ. We should understand that these adhkars that we recite, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من شر ما خلق بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء. All these adhkars that we read, والآيات, and the verses of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Falaq, these verses, Ayatul Kursi, and all of them, wal-ad'iyah, and those supplications that we make, allati yustashfa biha, by which we seek cure, wa yurqa biha, with which we make ruqya, we seek healing. Hiya fi nafsiha nafi'atun shafiyatun. These verses by themselves, they are nafi'atun. very beneficial. Shafiyatun, a means of cure. The baths themselves are beneficial. They are very impactful. They are shafiyatun. They are means of cure by themselves. Just like you say, paracetamol or Panadol itself is cure for the ailments of headache or fever. So these verses themselves intrinsically are a means of cure. ولكن, however, تستدعي قبول المحل. This matter, the cure itself, these are cares. They require قبول المحل. They require that there is some acceptance. There is some accommodation. They should be accepted by the place that is receiving the cure. If you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha itself is nafi'atun shafiyatun. It is beneficial and it is a means of cure bi'idhnillah. This is one thing. There's also something that is required, and that is qabulul mahal. The place that you are reading this Fatiha onto should be able to receive that Fatiha and make benefit with it. Just like you say, if you take a tablet, your body itself should be ready to receive that. The body should not reject it, because this is also well known. We are coming back to it in modern medical practice, that the body has what they refer to as drug hypersensitivity. If you take a medicine, your body can reject it. The body will generate some kinds of antibodies. It will fight the medicine and the medicine will be useless. So it is well known in medicine. So there should be acceptance. The person you are reading the ruqyah to, he should have acceptance. This is very important. So the first thing is what? The medicine itself. The second thing is what? The place you are putting the medicine. The patient that is receiving the medicine, he must have what? Acceptance. His body must comply. He must have a system that will accept that this is the medicine and it is beneficial for me. So this is the second point that we must pay attention to when we make ruqyah, or even when we take our day-to-day tablets and medicines. The third thing that we should pay attention to, the Ibn Al-Qayyim was saying here, rahimahullah, that affects and influences the effectiveness of ruqyah, or the effectiveness of even taking mundane tablets that we take. The third thing is, he said, rahimahullah, تستدعي قبول المحل وقوة همة الفاعل وتأثيره. تستدعي قبول المحل. The individual should accept the healing وقوة همة الفاعل, and the strength, the innate power of influence by the person who is reciting the Quran. As an individual, you have something inside you. You have the power. You have the capacity in your personality, in your individual as a person, to create impact. He said, rahimahullah, he called it quwwatu himmatil fa'il, the strength of the power of influence by the person who is reciting the Quran, who is reciting Al-Fatiha. He himself has some strength inside him, وَتَأْثِيرَهُ, and an ability to actually create an impact. What can we liken this to in modern medical practice? You can liken that, you can liken that to the knowledge and the experience of the doctor who is handling the process of cure in the hospital. You can liken what he's saying now to what? The knowledge, the experience, the intuition of the medical doctor who is handling the patient. So three things are involved. The medicine itself, it is al-adhkaru wal-ayat wal-adiyat allati yustashfa biha wa yurqa biha. the verses, the adhkars, the verses of the Quran with which we are making ruqyah. هي في نفسها نافعة شافية. It in itself is a means of benefit and a means of cure. This is point one. Point two, however, to make it be influential, to make it be effective and potent, there are two things also that we must consider. The first one is what? Qabulul mahal. It requires that the person receiving it should be able to accept the treatment. وَقُوَّةَ هِمَّةِ الْفَاعِلِ وَتَأْثِيرَهُ. قُوَّةُ هِمَّةِ الْفَاعِلِ. The person who is giving, the person who is administering the cure itself, he should have a power, an innate, intrinsic power to influence and impact. You must be able to give influence. You must have some strength inside you that makes you be able to give an impact, that makes you be able to influence using the medicine on the body of the recipient. So three things: the medicine, the recipient, and the one who is giving the medicine to the people. They are important in terms of ruqyah. The recipient, the giver, and the medicine itself. So we recognize the Quran as the medicine. It remains two things: the person receiving the medicine and the person who is giving the medicine. I hope that it is clear. Ibn Al-Qayyim said, rahimahullah, فَمَتَى تَخَلَّفَ الشِّفَاءُ. Whenever shifa or healing appears to be held back, healing is delayed. You are not seeing healing. You are reciting Fatiha, you are not seeing an impact. He said, rahimahullah, كَانَ لِضَعْفِ تَأْثِيرِ الْفَاعِلِ. That usually happens because the person who is giving the healing, the person who is administering the Surah Al-Fatiha, the Ruqyah, he has some da'f. He has weakness in his internal ability to actually create an impact. أو لعدم قبول المحل المنفعل. Or because the place where the Ruqyah is directed, the recipient, his body is rejecting that medicine. Where the place where you want to create impact, it is rejecting the medicine. أو لمانع قوي فيه يمنع أن ينجح فيه الدواء. أو or that لمانع قوي فيه, there is something in the body of that person who is receiving the cure. That thing, يمنعه, it will prevent him. It will prevent the medicine. And it will prevent that individual from having the impact of that medicine on him. Either he's rejecting it completely, or that he has something inside him. It will be slowing down the healing process by the medicine. كما يكون ذلك في الأدوية والأدواء الحسية. In mundane medicine and in mundane illnesses, those ones that are hissiyah, those ones that we see. This also happens fi al-adwiyati wal-adwa'i al-hissiyah. This one also happens regarding the medicine and the illnesses that we see. In the medicines and the illnesses that we see, sometimes a person takes a medicine, bam, his body will reject it. Medical science, I think they understand this a lot. I think that's what they refer to as effectiveness, medication, the effectiveness of medicine. And they say that some things affect it. They say the diet of the individual affects it. They say that his lifestyle affects it. What you eat affects how the medicine you take will have an impact on you. Your lifestyle. What you drink, maybe the person who smokes is more predisposed to cancer. Those who smoke, they are more predisposed to particular, kinds of illnesses. And those who don't smoke are far away from those illnesses. Those of us who fast, bi'idhnillah, Ramadan, we are protected, bi'idhnillah, from particular illnesses. So lifestyle affects how medicines have impact on your body. Where's your genetics? They can give you the medicine and you have a genetic build-up that will completely reject the medicine. They also call some human error. What's human error? The way and the manner that you are taking the medicine. So it may make you have lower than necessity of the medicine inside your body, or overdose of the medicine in your body. I think that's what they refer to now as abuse, drug abuse. So all of these, how the individual is, the recipient, his genetic composition, how his build of a person is, he can make go down on the influence of medicines upon them. He said, rahimahullah, in that paragraph, فَمَتَى تَخَلَّفَ الشِّفَاءُ كَثِيرِ الْفَائِدِ, when أو لعدم قبول, it is because of the ضعف تأثير الفاعل. The individual who is administering the medicine, they have some sort of a weakness with him, أو لقبول المح, or because receiving the cure itself, that place, the body of the recipient is not accepting, it's not accepting cure, it's not accepting the medicine. أو لمانع قوي فيه, or because of something that's very strong in that individual, يمنع أن ينجع فيه الدواء, which will prevent the potency and the effectiveness of the medicine on him. كما يكون ذلك في الأدوية والأدواء الحسية, just as we find in the medicine and the diseases that we can see with our eyes. He said, rahimahullah, فَإِنَّ أَدَمَ تَأْثِيرِهَا, because the non-impact of the medicine on a person, it could be قد يكون لعدم قبول الطبيعة لذلك الدواء. It could be لعدم قبول الطبيعة, because that individual's genetic composition, the individual's person, what he has, his genetic composition on his body, it is rejecting it. وقد يكون لمانع قوي يمنع من ابتدائه أثره. It could also be for a strong reason that will prevent the proper influence and effectiveness of that medicine on him, such as issues of diet, such as issues of lifestyle, such as issues of drug abuse that they refer to as human error. He said, rahimahullah, فَإِنَّ الطَّبِيعَةَ, because the natural makeup, the intrinsic genetic composition of every individual, إِذَا أَخَذَتِ الدَّوَاء, when it receives medicine, بِقَبُولٍ تَامٍ كَانَ انتفاع البدن به بحسب ذلك القبول. When the human genetic composition receives a medicine, كان انتفاع البدن به, the way that the human body will receive it and become beneficial from it, we take benefit from it, بحسب ذلك القبول, it will be in accordance to how much that body and its genetic composition is able to accept the medicine. He said, rahimahullah, وَكَذَلِكَ الْقَلْبِ, the same thing with the human mind. إِذَا أَخَذَ الرُّقَى وَالتَّعَوِيذ بِقَبُولٍ تَامٍ, when the human mind receives a ruqya, when it receives ruqya and at-ta'awīz and the prayers of asking for protection, بِقَبُولٍ تَامٍ, if it accepts it completely and absolutely, وَكَانَ لِلرَّاقِ نَفْسٌ فَعَالَةٌ وَهِمَّةٌ مُؤَثِّرَةٌ, if you combine the individual, the patient's accepting the medicine completely, وَكَانَ لِلرَّاقِ نَفْسٌ, and the person who is dispensing the ruqya, the person who is reading the ruqya, he has nafsun, a kind of a soul, fa'alatun, that is very, very impactful. Wa himmatun mu'assiratun, he has an intrinsic, a strong intrinsic power of influence. أثر في إزالة الداء. The combination of these three things will be potent. It will be effective. It will have influence to remove that disease. It will influence the removal of the disease. Al-Imām ibn Al-Qayyim is stressing the fact that yes, we may find medicine, but it remains the person who is dispensing the medicine and the person who is receiving the medicine. Let us note this as a major point. Yes, Allah has created medicine for every disease that He has created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma anzalallahu da'an illa anzala lahu shifa'an. Allah has not sent down any disease except that He has also sent down the cure for that disease. Wal Qur'anu kulluhu shifa. And the entirety of the Quran is a means of cure. So this is the medicine in itself. It remains two other things. It remains the recipient and how well he can accept the healing from the medicine because of a lot of factors that we have mentioned. Genetic composition, his body, his mind, who is he, and all of this. The recipient. And the individual who is dispensing the ruqya itself. So three things combined in the act of healing and cure. The medicine, the recipient, the patient, and then the doctor or the person who is dispensing the means of cure to that patient. It is the interplay of these three things that brings about, by the permission of Allah, the healing of the individual. I hope that this portion is so clear. He said, Rahimahullah, وَكَذَلِكَ الدُّعَى. The way we have explained about medicines, وَكَذَلِكَ الدُّعَى. Likewise our dua, our supplications. فَإِنَّهُ مِنْ أَقْوَى الْأَسْبَابِ فِي دَفْعِ الْمَكْرُوهِ. The dua is from the strongest of the means فِي دَفْعِ الْمَكْرُوهِ, to put away things we don't like. If you have something you don't like, one of the major ways to keep it away from yourself is through dua. Ikhwa, this is a major point. He said, وَكَذَلِكَ الدُّعَى. As we spoke about the Quran, the same thing we say about ad-dua. فَإِنَّهُ مِنْ أَقْوَى الْأَسْبَابِ فِي دَفْعِ الْمَكْرُوهِ. Dua is from the strongest means to keep away, to put your body free from things you don't like happening to you. وَحُصُولِ الْمَطْلُوبِ. Likewise, when you want to achieve your desires, one of the ways to achieve them, min aqwal asbab, one of the strongest means to keep away evil, fi daf'il makruh, to keep away things you don't like from yourself, wa husulil matlub, and achieve the things that you desire. Min aqwal asbabi dhalik, from the strongest means to do that is what? Ad-dua. He said, Rahimahullah, وَلَكِنْ قَدْ يَتَخَلَّفُ عَنْهُ أَثَرُهُ. But you can find that you are making dua, but the impact of dua is delayed. You'll be making the dua, but you are not seeing the impact. Rahimahullah. He said, إِمَّا لِضَعْفِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. That can be because of the fact that the dua itself is weak. That medicine itself, you are not bringing it properly. لِضَعْفِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. The dua itself, you are saying, it can be weak. How can a dua be weak? بِأَنْ يَكُونَ دُعَاءً لَا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى لِمَا فِيهِ مِنَ الْعُدْوَانِ. The reason your dua can be weak itself is that لَا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. It is a kind of dua that Allah Himself does not like. Why? لِمَا فِيهِ مِنَ الْعُدْوَانِ. Because that dua has udwan, it has aggression inside it. It has sinfulness inside it. It has wrongdoing inside it. Like you make a dua because of hasad, that somebody who is favored by Allah by something should be prevented from that favor. To make dua regarding somebody. The man did not offend you. It is not da'watul mazlum. It is not da'watul mazlum. You just don't like good for that person. Or a dua that can sever the ties of kinship. This dua itself is da'ifun li du'afin. It is from the du'af, from the weakness that can come inside a dua. So he said, rahimahullah, وَلَكِنْ قَدْ يَتَخَلَّفُ أَنْهُ أَثَرُهُ. It is possible that you are making dua and the impact of the dua is being delayed. You made dua, you are not seeing the impact. Why? إِمَّا لِضُعَفِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. This is perhaps because the dua itself is weak. بأن يكون دعاء لا يحبه الله تعالى لما فيه من العدوان. The reason could be that that dua, it contains something. لا يحبه الله تعالى. It's a dua that Allah does not like you. He has prohibited you from things like it. لما فيه من العدوان. Because that dua contains some aggression inside it. Like begging Allah to destroy people. Begging Allah to destroy a scholar, and he's not guilty of anything. Begging Allah to make you be able to commit evil. You want to steal government's money. You are begging Allah, Allah make it easy. Allah make it possible for you to be able to steal government money or for be able to become indecent with a woman. This dua itself is a weak dua. Why? It contains wrongdoing and sinfulness. وَإِمَّا لِضَعْفِ الْقَلْبِ وَمَرَضِهِ بِالذُّنُوبِ. It can also be because the mind that is making the dua itself is weak. The first reason is because of what? The dua is weak. The second reason is because of what? لِضَعْفِ الْقَلْبِ وَمَرَضِهِ بِالذُّنُوبِ. The mind itself that is making the dua is weak. وَمَرَضِهِ. It is sick. بِالذُّنُوبِ, with a lot of illnesses. It's a sick mind. The mind is sick. Sinfulness has caused sickness to the mind. It's a weak mind. So combine a weak mind that is making weak dua. أو لضعف الإيمان فيه يعني في القلب. Or because the qalb itself, the iman is weak. He's making the dua, but he does not even trust what he's saying. He does not even have high hopes that Allah will answer him. So the mind is weak. The dua is weak. Iman inside that mind is also weak. أو لعدم إقباله على الله وجمعيته عليه وقت الدعاء. You may not also see impact again for another reason. What is that reason? لعدم إقباله على الله وجمعيته عليه وقت الدعاء. At the time, waqt dua, when he was making that dua, he does not have iqbalu Allah. He wasn't actually turning to Allah completely. وجمعيته عليه. He has not gathered all his attention and directed towards Allah at the time that he was making dua. So the mind is weak, the dua is weak, there is weak iman. When you are even making the dua, you are not paying attention. Your attention is distracted. Your mind is here at the time you are making dua. He said, rahimahullah, فَيَكُونُ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْقَوْسِ الرَّخْوِ. Your dua will not be بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْقَوْسِ الرَّخْوِ. Your dua will be like the loose bow and arrow. Take bow now. The bow, the bow made of a wood, it has a string. How about when the string is weak? How do you fire an arrow from a bow with a weak string? How do you fire an arrow from a bow with a weak string? It is very weak. He said, فَيَكُونُ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْقَوْسِ الرَّخْوِ جِدًّا. You have a qaws, but it has weakness, completely weak. How do you fire an arrow from a bow with a weak string? فَإِنَّ السَّهْمَ, Ibn Al-Qayyim said, rahimahullah, the arrow that you want to shoot with that kind of a bow, يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ خُرُوجًا ضَعِيفًا, it will come out of the bow so weak. It will come out from the bow so weak. Another reason why the dua may not be seen to be impactful and potent, he said, وَإِمَّا لِحُصُولِ الْمَانِعِ مِنَ الْإِجَابَةِ. Sometimes, apart from the weakness of the individual making the dua is weak because it contains sinfulness, or the mind releasing the dua is weak. It is covered up in sin. It is covered up in doubtfulness regarding Allah. The person is not even directing attention towards Allah while making the dua. So the dua is weak from the individual himself. There can be another reason. He said, وَإِمَّا لِحُصُولِ الْمَانِعِ مِنَ الْإِجَابَةِ. There might be the presence of something that prevents Allah's accepting your dua. I call them poisons of dua. He says, وَإِمَّا لِحُصُولِ الْمَانِعِ مِنَ الْإِجَابَةِ. There might be that acceptance itself is prevented by some things. Min aklil haram, such as when you eat haram. So the dua may be lawful. You may have iman. You may direct your attention towards Allah when you are making the dua. So the bow may be strong. The string may be strong. But the arrow may also be strong. But it has something preventing it from reaching the desired target. The bow may be strong. The string may be strong. The arrow itself may be strong. But it may have what? Something that is preventing it from reaching the desired destination. He said, rahimahullah, min aklil haram, such as when you are eating haram, wa zulm, such as injustice, wa rayn al-dhunubi ala al-kulub, and the kind of covering that sins bring to cover your soul. We mentioned it when we were discussing al-amrad al-qalbiyah, when Allah said, kalla bal arana ala kulubihim ma kanu yaksibun. So all of these, he said, rahimahullah, wastila il-ghafla. Some people, they are so disoriented. The man is absolutely disoriented. Wasahwi. The man is always falling into error, so lax in his affairs. Wallahwi. The man is full of play. Everything about him is play, Allah, and jest. وَغَلَبَتُهَا عَلَيْهِ. So these things, as-sahwu and Allahu. As-sahwu is laxity. The man is hardly ever serious. And Allahu, the man is always only engaged in play, jests, jokes. The man is a laugher. He laughs all the time. So all of these, وَغَلَبَتُهَا عَلَيْهَا, they completely overrun his mind. وَالذُّنُوبِ, likewise sins. So you have things that the arrow boy to block the impacts of that arrow. Things like eating haram, things like az-zulm, being unjust, rayn al-qulub, or rayn al-dhunub ala al-qulub. When you have rain is the seal caused by dhunub ala al-qulub. Don't forget, if a person commits a sin, Allah drops a black dot on his heart. If he makes tawbah, he removes it. If he does not make tawbah, he commits another sin, that black dot begins to get expanded. That is Rainul Kulub, Rainu Zunub al Kulub. It continues to gradually cover the soul. So he will not care what he does. You will do something, everybody will be saying, why are you able to do this? He doesn't care because his soul is covered up in sin. If this kind of a mind makes dua, what potency will the dua have? Say, Allah help me. How will Allah help you? How will Allah? Your arrow is blocked by the deeds from your own hand of poison in your hand. The mind is overrun. Wasahwi walwi. It's overrun with as-sahw. As-sahw is ever unserious. In fact, his job is to make people laugh and laughter. Wallahu jesting. Wa galabatuha alayha. All of these things have overrun his soul. Likewise was dhunub. He is enmeshed in sins. So what is the impact of the dua that this kind of a person will make? The dua will be very weak. It's coming from a weak mind, weak attention. So like he said, rahimahullah, he said it's like a bow with a loose string. When the arrow comes from it, how will it be? In fact, the arrow will drop in the same place where you fire it, if at all it will emerge. Now let's even say you have even tried to fire the arrow. Somewhat, somehow, you have things that will block that arrow away from your target. Things like what? Aklul haram. It will not allow that arrow to fly. The arrow of your dua. So people make dua, but they are not seeing the impact. They are trying to shoot from a weak string. The mind is covered up in disobedience to Allah. It's covered up in play. It's covered up in jests. Covered up in eating haram. In fact, that one is a clear-cut blockage for the potency and effectiveness of your dua. Ibn Al-Qayyim said, rahimahullah, kama fi sahih al-hakim. Just like it occurs in Al-Mustadrak, this Sahih al-Hakim, the proper name to refer to that book is Al-Mustadrak by Imam Hakim rahimahullah min hadithi Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. From the hadith, he wants to give us the evidence for what he just told us. As it occurs in the hadith of Abu Hurairah from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that the Prophet said alayhi salatu wassalam, Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Make dua, ud'u Allah. Make dua to Allah. Call upon Allah. Invoke Allah. Wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. When you are invoking Allah, be sure that at that time, anta muqinun bil ijaba. You are expressive, you are hopeful that Allah will answer you. You are not a person who's already forgetful. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He has forgotten himself. He is enmeshed in play. He is upon dua. He's pressing his phone. He is upon dua. He's checking his Facebook posts. He's upon a dua. He's checking his Instagram or her Instagram. He's upon dua. He's making a video of himself or herself. These kinds of things will prevent your dua. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Invoke Allah, make dua, wa antum muqinun, while you are upon certainty of iman, bil ijaba, that Allah will grant your request. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa'alamu, you should go and understand this point too. أن الله لا يقبل دعاء من قلب غافل لاهٍ. You should understand this point. أن الله, that certainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا يقبل دعاء. He will not accept any kind of a dua. Allah, hold it, understand it. وَعْلَمُوا, recognize this point too. أن الله لا يقبل دعاء, that certainly Allah will not accept the dua, any kind of a dua, min qalbin, from a kind of a mind, ghafilin, that is absent. You are absent-minded. You are saying that you are making dua. Because that mind is covered up in al-ghafla. The mind is covered up in what? As-sahw. The mind is covered up in what? Allah. It's covered up in play. It's covered up in jest. It is hardly serious about anything. Was-zunub. The mind is covered up in sins. Its mind is covered up in aklul haram. Was-zulm. So all of these have encapsulated the mind, preventing the mind from having attention directed to Allah for that dua will be potent and effective. It's like a plant you plant and the weeds are all around it. No matter how much you affect you bring in the fertilizer. If you are not careful, the weeds will not allow the plant to grow. These things will affect your dua. May Allah accept our dua. So the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, and Ibn Al-Qayyim is mentioning this as the evidence for all that he has told us above. He said, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Make dua while you are upon certainty of iman that Allah will grant your dua. Wa'alamu. You should understand this point too. Anna Allah la yaqbalu du'a'an. That Allah will not accept a dua. Meaning that you want to fire an arrow from a very weak and loose bow. How will it fly? It will not fly. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبَلُ دُعَاءً مِنْ قَلْبٍ غَافِلٍ لَاهٍ. Allah will not accept a dua from a mind that is ghafil. It is absent from its place of dua. Lahin. It is consumed in play and jest. It is an unserious mind. So truly, yes, you raised up your hand. Truly, yes, you face the Qibla, but your attention is not upon the dua. You are far away. You are far away. How about when the dua itself is about sins? You are asking Allah to steal money. You are asking Allah to commit a sin. You are asking Allah to do something unlawful. So the dua is weak. You will not find impact. The dua is weak. So don't forget too, as we just read about medicines, when you also make dua, when you read ruqya of dua to a person who is ill, apart from the fact that this ruqya itself, the ruqya itself is medicine in itself, it remains you who is firing the arrow and the person receiving the arrow. It's very important. So these things affect what we do. It is good that we understand it. They affect the medicines that we take. They affect the ruqya that we make. They affect the dua that we make. I think we should go back because this book requires that you read it and think about what he's saying. That is when you are able to implement what he's saying in yourself. Many places, he too will say, Fata'amma, think, contemplate what I have said. What we have said today, I hope that we can listen to it again and again. The things that impact your medicines, your ruqya, they don't make your ruqya to be potent and effective. The things that influence your dua, they don't make your dua to be potent and effective. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that there are some kinds of things that Allah, when you do it, He will not accept your dua. The first of them is that when you make dua, you are absent-minded. The second of them is that you are consumed in play and jest and distractions. From that is that the dua you are making itself is a dua of sin. You are asking Allah for a sin and a sin of disobedience to Him. From that is that you are making dua, you are not even sure whether you'll be granted your dua. And you are talking to Allah who is Al-Wahhabur Razzaq. So all of these things will affect your dua. That is why back to our book after that hadith, Ibn Al-Qayyim said, Rahimahullah, فَهَذَا دَوَاءٌ نَافِعٌ مُزِيلٌ لِلدَّاءِ. This is nafi'un muzilun lidda. Dua is a cure, nafi'un, that is effective, muzilun lidda. It will remove illnesses, ولكن غفلة القلب عن الله تبطل قوته فهذا دواء نافع مزيل للداء. The dua is a very potent and effective way to remove illnesses. ولكن غفلة القلب, but the absent-mindedness عن الله, away from Allah, waqt ad-dua, at the time that you are making the dua, your mind is far away. You are not attentive. You don't care. You are not even hoping to receive acceptance for your dua. All of these things, tubtilu quwwatahu, they will destroy the strength of whatever dua you are making, if at all that dua even has the strength. So the dua is weak, and it is surrounded by things that will not make it fly. So why are you waiting for your dua to be accepted? You have not done that dua in a way that it will be accepted. I hope that it is clear, and I hope that we can continue from here in our next class. Things that affect the effectiveness of medicines and our ruqyah, and then things that affect the effectiveness and the potency of our dua. Those are the things that we have discussed today. We can go back to them and read it again and again. Things that affect the effectiveness of medicines and things that affect the effectiveness and the potency of your dua. The medicine is affected by the person who is receiving it and the person who is giving it. Your dua is affected by the strength of the dua itself. Then your consciousness, your hope in Allah, your trusting in Allah to accept your dua, and you're avoiding haram and injustice and all of this. Because even if that dua comes strong, these things will prevent that arrow from reaching its target. I hope that it is clear. We can answer one or two questions, inshallah.
Salawatullah alaikum wa shaykh.
Ameen, ameen.
The first question here is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How can we connect the three conditions mentioned to when the patient is one reciting the ruqyah upon himself?
When the patient is the person reciting the ruqyah upon himself, such as, let's say, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, he is the person giving the ruqyah. We know the power of his impact because of his personality and his spirituality, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the barakats that Allah has given him. So he reads it for himself. And his body is a body that is full of acceptance for dua and ruqyah. His body, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is a body that accepts and admits and becomes influenced by dua. And then the dua itself is perfect from the Quran. So it's a perfect combination of the three in his own case. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let's take the case of another individual that's perhaps today he's sinful, tomorrow he's looking for tawbah. And that's where all of us, that's where we belong to. Because the Muslims have three categories. ظالم لنفسه مقتصد أم سابقون بالخيرات بإذن الله. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, humus sabiquna bil khairat bi'idhnillah. They are those in front of, in terms of goodness. The Messenger and his companions, radiyallahu anhum, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar, Uthman, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. And that takes me to another thing. I'll come back here, inshallah. It takes me when I was pondering about this portion. How come then was Abu Sa'id al-Khudri able to administer Surah Al-Fatiha as ruqyah for a kafir? So we have three things. The ruqya, the person giving the ruqya, the raqi, and the one receiving the ruqya. In the case of Abu Sa'id that we read, the man was stung by a scorpion. This is a kafir. How is his reception? His reception comes from one angle. The fact that he wants the cure. He desired the cure. He didn't have any problem as far as the Quran is concerned. He sought for it. Help me look for it. And he was hopeful that I would find cure in it. That is one positive thing about that individual. But something that is bigger than that, that made that ruqya to be as effective as we have seen it, was the strength of influence from Abu Sa'id himself, the giver. When the strength of influence is very strong, even if there is drug resistance, even if there is drug hypersensitivity, even if there is drug allergy, the strength of the power of the person who is bringing that ruqya will be so strong that it will overpower any kind of hypersensitivity from the recipient. Is this clear to us? The strength of Iman, the quwwatu ta'thir, the strength of the ability to create an impact that the person who is giving the ruqya has. It may overpower. It's like saying that the medicine is so strong that the antibodies can't even fight that medicine. It will destroy the antibodies. And I think that's what cancer does to the body in terms of an illness. Take it to be a cure now. I think that's what HIV also does. It destroys the body immune system. Now look at it from the side of the dua. It can disable if it is very strong. Body immune will come truly. The recipient maybe is a kafir. But the strength of power of impact from the person who is giving this ruqya, it will disable all of that and create the positive impact. I hope that it is clear about the Rahman. So if the person making the ruqya is very strong, it is a person who has serious, like he said, he called it rahimahullah, himmatul fa'il wa ta'siruhu. He has great intrinsic power of influence to influence and cause a change. It will be so strong. And then the shifa is shifa. The Quran is still the Quran. It is a medicine by itself. Combine these two things will fight that resistance. They will disable the resistance and they will create an impact. That is what I think happened in the case of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri vis-a-vis these three things and how they impact in terms of cure and in terms of healing. I hope that this can be used to explain. If you are a person now, you are a zalimun li nafsik. If you are the one making ruqya for yourself, it may not be as effective as you want. Why? Zulm, you are covered up in zulm. You are covered up in indecency. And you are the one receiving the cure for yourself. So how then? So the one point you have out of three is the potency of the medicine itself. In these two, when you continue to still have an impact, even though it's going to be very slow itself as a medicine, that is what you see. So your body will be fighting it. So you have to continue for as long as Allah wills for the impact to be created in you. And that is why usually at the issues of at-tawassul comes in. The dua is salihin. You go to a righteous person, make dua for me. That was one reason that man came to Ibn Al-Qayyim. Please help me. I have tried alone, I can't continue. And this illness is destroying me. This disease is killing me. I have tried alone, please help me. If he was alone continuing, it can have an impact, but it will be a long time. Why? He has two things working against the effectiveness of the medicine. So he will remove one of them, the issue of the giver of the cure. So he adds it to the potency of the cure itself. So he gets 2/3. And when the person giving the cure itself is very strong, easily, almost immediately, they run against the recipient's resistance that he has in him. So these three things, there's an interplay of them. If we understand them, we can always employ them. The person has depression. He himself has started to fail. He may not be able to help himself out. He needs somebody to come in to help him, so as to increase the effectiveness of the medicine. The medicine is there. So the person giving the medicine and the person receiving the medicine. So if the person has depression, you can meet somebody else. Help me. Help me. So that one perhaps can make ruqyah for him. Or if he continues by himself, what he will need is continue. Don't stop. Continue. Don't stop. If you have to be the one making the ruqyah upon yourself, you don't have to stop. As you are not stopping, you'll be avoiding the poisons to that ruqyah. Don't forget. Things that will not make it work, like eating haram. That's why when we were younger than this, we used to be very involved in a lot of ruqyah. So when we advise the people we make ruqyah for, we say, don't stay in a place where there are pictures, animate pictures, because jinns hide behind pictures. Don't eat haram. Observe salah daily, completely, in jama'ah. If a woman dress properly, you see all these things gradually. By the time you begin to keep to them, they will be strengthening your body as a receiver of ruqyah, and will be strengthening the chances of your quicker recovery. I think what we are discussing today is effect medicine. The entirety of this discussion and this book itself is about medicine, healing and cure. There's always an interplay of the doctor, the patient, and the medicine. It's also in mundane medicine. You can't compare a neurosurgeon who has spent 50 years in neurosurgery with a young graduate who just started the art of medicine. The impact they will create in that neurosurgery, it will be different because of the personality of the doctor. Despite the fact that surgery is the cure and the recipient is the same person. The person giving the medicine, his experience, in fact his psychology, whether he was angry, whether he's happy, whether he's sad, whether he was worried from home fighting with his wife, the impact upon the surgery that a surgeon gives upon the patient. Three things: the patient, the doctor, and the medicine. Interplay of these three things tell how quick the patient becomes healed from the disease that is suffering. I hope that we have understood it. Allahu Alam. We can stop here about the Rahman.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykh.
And we want to pay Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.